So you've been bow hunting now for a couple years, and occasionally you do get a small doe or a button buck to come in range of your stand. But on those rare occasions when you do see a shooter buck, he's always about 15, 20 yards out of range. And you're beginning to wonder, is there anything I could do to get that guy a little closer so I can have a fair shot at him? Well, let's talk about that. Stick around, and I'll be right back. Hey, thanks for sticking around. This is Gen 10-9, where we give common sense advice for everyday fishing and hunting situations for your average sportsman. And today we're talking about how to use deer scents so that we can draw shooter bucks within range of our stand. So with that out of the way, let's get started. So for this particular video, we're going to talk about two specific situations. The first is that you're hunting on state land for the first time, and in your scouting, you find what you believe is a hot trail. And you just have a little bit of time and you really don't want to mess up the scent integrity of where you're putting your stand. So that's scenario number one. The second scenario is property that you're very familiar with. You know where the sanctuaries are, you know where the food plots are, you know how the deer travel in between the two. You're even familiar with the trees that you're going to put your stand in. So that's the second scenario. So keep that in mind. And to begin with, we're going to look at the first scenario and then talk about the second scenario. Now I'm only about 10 feet up, and I only got this high because I wanted to give some perspective a little bit above the canopy view of what I'm talking about. Usually I hunt higher, but just for the sake of this video, I'm only going about 10 feet up. So right now my blind is perpendicular to the main trail that I'm, quote, supposed to be hunting. Now, just a side note, you never want to put your blind within 5 to 10 feet of the trail you're hunting because you're giving away a lot of advantages and you're putting yourself in a great disadvantage because often a deer will come off a hillside or will be coming up a slight incline and you actually put yourself in the view of the deer's eyesight. But the biggest problem is it's hard to maintain scent integrity just around 5 to 10 feet from your stand. You've been walking around and your scent sometimes sinks. And so you really never want to put your blind directly on the trail that you're hunting. You always want to try to be 15 to 25 yards off the trail you're hunting. So let's look, like I said, right now my stand is perpendicular to the trail I want to hunt. Let's just say the deer are moving from right to left or left to right, and I'm facing that trail. So if you look at the yellow balloon, that will represent the primary scent tab. And usually I try to place that tab 7 to 8 feet above the ground. You never want to put your primary scent tab low enough so that a walking deer can actually put their nose on it. Because once they smell it, they realize what it is and they may move on. What you want is for your buck to be looking for the scent that's somewhere around him. And if you put it above him 3 or 4 feet, there's a good chance he'll never find it. Now, I have had bucks get up on their hind haunches and put their nose directly on the scent tab. So that will happen. So don't be surprised if that happens. And as you can see, I got a Mackenzie deer, and that represents where I want the deer to station for my shot. I want to try to entice a buck to look for the scent, mill around in the area, and give me an ethical shot. And I hope that shot will be 15 to 20 to 25 yards from me, and therefore I put my scent tab 20 yards from my stand site. So finally, again, you want the wind blowing left to right or right to left, or the wind blowing into your face. You never want the wind blowing from your stand to your primary scent tab, because if you do that, the deer will smell you well before they get to your scent tab, and then you're cooked and you're never going to get a realistic shot at a big buck. So this scenario assumes that the wind is blowing in front of me, right to left or left to right, or maybe the wind is blowing in my face. You never want your wind blowing to the trail you're hunting or to your primary scent tab. So that's scenario one. Now, scenario two, everything I just said is exactly like scenario one, with the exception that you're really familiar with the land you're hunting. you're actually even familiar with some of the trees that you may put your blind in. And because you're familiar with the land, you feel comfortable with providing extra doe scent around your stand site. So this is scenario 2. And in scenario 2, I not only put my primary scent tab out, but I put 2 secondary scent tabs, and this is where I place them. So in scenario 2, I add 2 additional scent tabs, each 45 degrees behind me. So here's the first one, and it's a blue balloon. I don't know if you can see that. I can't hardly see it in my viewfinder, but it's the blue balloon. It's right about there. And the second is represented by this orange balloon, and it's off 45 degrees behind me. So there's the orange balloon, and there's the blue balloon. And these are my secondary scent tabs. So some might ask, why don't you just put 1 scent tab directly behind your tree? Well, trust me, I've had big bucks come in directly behind me and never give me a credible or ethical shot. And then they walk away directly behind me. And you never want that kind of scenario to occur, because you can have a big buck within bow range, but because you have your tree between you and the buck, it's an extremely difficult shot and a very risky shot. You never want that to occur. So this is why I put scent tabs at a 45 degree behind me on each side, right there and right there. Because if a big buck is coming downwind behind me, then if they come to one of the scent tabs on my left or on my right, I actually have a very good shot and an ethical shot at a big guy who comes in from behind me. With these 3 scent tabs, I virtually give myself 360 degrees of good scent cover, and actually attractive scent cover. Additionally, if a bruiser comes in to any of these scent tabs, scent tab 3, scent tab 2, or my primary scent tab, then I have a great chance of getting a shot at him, because my scent tabs are located in positions to where I have very good balance for a very good shot, regardless of where the buck comes. So there's a really good reason why this 3 scent tab strategy is excellent, and here's why. Leading up to the pre-rut and the chase phase, bucks will abandon their sanctuaries and they'll stop running along their buck rub lines. And what they'll do is they'll actually bed downwind of major doe trails. And so when a doe comes along a major doe trail, he is often downwind from her, and he will come in once he makes contact with her and he'll scent check her. So a lot of times during the really close to the pre-rut and in the chase phase, bucks, they're either on the major doe trails or they're running parallel to the major doe trails where they can get a scent of a doe on the trail. And then they'll come in and harass her and try to scent check her. And if she's not in, then he'll leave her alone. And a lot of times they'll just go back and bed down to where they can smell the next doe running along the same trail. So a lot of the big bucks who are interested in finding does that are coming in, they'll station themselves so that if the wind is in their nose, they'll smell a doe on a major trail. He'll come in and check them. So that's a great reason why having 2 tabs behind you is very strategic, because since the wind may be blowing in your face, if I have 2 scent tabs behind me, a lot of times those scent tabs will drag good doe scent into their noses. They'll never catch my scent because my scent is higher up and over their heads. But the scent tabs are lower to the ground and the wind is pushing that scent into their nose, and that's the scent they're most interested in. But if you feel comfortable, and this is the strategy I use whenever I hunt state land, and I'll show you a picture of a 10-point buck that I took. He wasn't really 10 points because 2 of his tines broke off, but he was a mature mainframe 10-point buck. And I took him in state land using the 3 scent tab strategy. And the interesting thing about this particular buck was he came from behind my stand location. I thought the deer were going to be moving in front of me. He came behind me. He came down off a hillside to me, and because that scent was in his nose, he never even knew I was in the area. So when he finally came in, I got a 10-yard shot, And I took him on state land, and the butcher estimated his age at around 4 or 5 years. So this strategy works for mature bucks, and it works for state land, and it can work on your property, even if you hunt like I do in high pressure areas where a lot of the deer are pretty weary and concerned about their safety. But just before the chase phase or right in the heat of the rut, you know, they all act the fool, and that's your best chance to get them in within range. So you can use the 1-tab strategy or the 3-tab strategy. And so now I'm going to take a moment to get out of this tree and I'll talk about what I mean by scent tabs. So what I mean by scent tabs are these. These are wool tabs. I like these because they're wide and they got a pre-cut hole so you can just set them on a branch, and they have a lot of space to put your scent on. So I like these. They come in packs of 4 or 6 to a pack, and they're about $4 or $6 a pack. Now, with respect to the type of lure that I use James Valley, and the two that I really like are Full Draw, and I use that early in the season and before the pre-rut. And then once the pre-rut and the chase phase kicks in and the rut kicks in, I use Full Rut Doe in Heat Gland Lure. So now you can get James Valley at the big box retailers, but I highly recommend that you don't do that. I recommend that you go directly to the James Valley website and purchase it directly from them. They have great customer service, and I always get my my supply of lures almost immediately, within 3 or 4 days. It may take longer depending upon where you live, but all that to say is they have great customer service. So now you can go to the big box store and you could buy it off the shelf, but heaven knows, who knows how old that stuff is, because, you know, they probably got some minimum wage high school dropout rotating stock. And in the spring, they pull all that stock off and put it in a box and wait for the fall to come around and put it back on the shelf. So you just don't know how old that stuff is. Whereas if you buy it directly from James Valley, I'm betting you get the freshest stuff they have on stock. So there's a reason why I use this gel stuff instead of pure doe urine. And the reality is, doe urine is probably the biggest scam in the deer hunting industry. You know, they treat this stuff as if it's so fresh. And the idea that you can keep urine fresh is just ridiculous. When it comes to, you know, expiration, doe urine has probably got a quicker expiration on it than ice cream in the summer heat. So now I'm not saying you shouldn't use, you know, this color alarm or doe tinkle this. If you want to use that stuff and you have success with that stuff, then go ahead and use it. But don't think you can save it for a long time. If I were going to use 100% doe urine, I'd buy the bottle and I'd use it in a single hunt. I just would pour the entire bottle on the ground or on the scent tab, because the fact of the matter is, that stuff doesn't stay fresh. If you think you can keep doe urine fresh, you're just fooling yourself. That stuff, there's no freshness in doe urine, and it decomposes extremely rapidly. So, and the nice thing about these gel products put out by James Valley, they're not using urine. They're using actual doe gland and scent gland. It's just been my experience that it's a higher quality product. Yeah, it does cost a little bit more, but the reality is it stays fresh a lot longer than that urine you'll buy in the big box retailer store. And the biggest joke is some of this urine is dated. You know, they give you the date in which they harvested this urine. And the idea that you can make urine stay fresh in an unrefrigerated environment over a couple months is just laughable. So am I saying don't buy it? Yeah, go ahead and buy it. But just don't think you can make it last. Just use it all in one hunt and throw away the bottle and be done with it. So, in the immortal words of Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that. I hope you appreciated the video, because it took me 3 days to film this. But if you did learn something and you like the video, then hit like and give it a thumbs up. Hey, may the Lord bring a wall hanger by your blind this season. Thanks for watching, and God bless.